All right, so this is what happened the last time the guy showed up on the show. Check it.
Oh, hey, I have an intelligence expert on the show today. Don't tell him. He might be looking for me. Mark Booher today, live in the lab with Keith Bilous. Yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab. All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching. So I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going. How did you go viral on TikTok? You were on America's Got Talent. How much do you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid. Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing. All right, so that wasn't working very well. Let's try this here a little differently here. Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab. All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching. So I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going. How did you go viral on TikTok? You were on America's Got Talent. How much do you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid. Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep. You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? What you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real. We brought you in with some Marley. I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing. I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2. I've built an AI myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if they're all they're going to do is hurt humanity? Does the world need an Oppenheimer moment with AI?
What a fun show.
Hey, you get no music, but you get a new camera angle. Yeah, true story. Hey, what's going on? Keith Bilous here on a Monday, live in the lab with my friend Mark Booher joining me. I'm not doing a long monologue today. Nope, not going to do it. Why? Because I'm going to test out my new angles. Check this out. I got this angle here, and I got this angle right here. And I want to introduce this guy for round two. Mark Booher, the infantryman, the lawyer, the soldier. He returns to the lab today. What's shaking, Mark?
Hey, man. How's it going? Good to be here.
I'm excited to have you back. So for those that don't know who Mark Booher is, I got some notes. So infantryman to intelligence pro, licensed attorney to global security operations. Mark Booher, he's done it all. He's trained Department of Defense units, Department of Justice teams, Fortune 500 giants, over 60 police departments, probably another 10 more. He's a contributor to Counter-Terrorist magazine. He's the host of the Pearl Snap Tactical podcast. He's been here for round one in the lab. We had an exceptional conversation. So if you're just tuning in to this one, I invite you to go back and check out number one. I'm going to link it here in the show for later. Expect some insights, some stories, and some actionable advice with my friend. I call him my friend. I tell everybody this. Once you've been in the guest once in the lab, you become a friend again. So, Boer, what's shaking, man? Good to have you back. How's it going? It's been a while since we chatted. I'm eager to get into kind of the nitty-gritty, the fun stuff of your career today.
Yeah, me too. Hey, man, I'm digging the camera angles. I like, looks like you're standing up. You're a lot more movement, a lot more mobile.
Yes, I'm standing. I got to get my stand rings, Mark. I've been sucking since the show started. I'm like, wait a minute. Why are my rings down all the time? Oh, because I'm sitting on my ass for 2 hours a day doing my show. So I got this angle, and then I got this one right here. Let's see if I can get this in here. And then I got this one right here too. So I got nice. So now I got this one here too. So there we go.
It looks sexy, man. I like it.
There you go. So what's going on in the Boer world today? We're back here for round two. I thought we had a great chat for round one. You and I have chatted since then offline, getting to know each other a little more. And I know as I speak with people off air, they're like, hey, man, you get some great guests on. Keith, I want you to get into some of the nitty gritty with some of your soldiers in the show. Because I've had yourself, I've had Malone, I've had a few guys that have gone, I think, to corners where a lot of listeners on this show haven't been. And I want to explore some of those corners today, Mark. But before we go there, let's take a few minutes, you and I, to reintroduce you. I threw some words out there, but let's let Nation know who Mark Booher is before we get into the nitty-gritty, my friend. Tee it up.
Yeah, man, I think you covered it pretty well. I'm just a dude from the South, man. I grew up in South Arkansas and out in a very rural area. and just in a small, I can't even say small town America. There was no town. There's no town. Really, if I tell people now where I'm from, I have to reference the school system because it was a K through 12 campus. I think my sister, her graduating class had 18 people in it. It was very small. There's schools like that scattered around the country, rural areas, but that's just where I came from, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I wouldn't trade that childhood for anything. I feel sorry for kids that don't get to grow up like that. I couldn't imagine doing anything different, but that's what's real for me. That's what I was used to, what I'm comfortable with. And when I think of just like the golden age and the perfect life and everything, I had a great childhood doing that. Great parents. And then, yeah, man, just rolled off. But at the same time, man, I had a wondrous spirit. And when I graduated high school, I couldn't wait to get out. And I went out, signed up, and the journey began. And so now we're here.
So, Mark, when we chatted last time and I asked you who you identified with, you said I identify as being a soldier. And that really struck me. And to this day, I put you in a different category for that. And that's maybe just me as a human being, because that says a lot about you. And when I hear about how you were raised, I think that even sets the stage even more. You were raised, and I'm going to make some assumptions, very analog, very outside, go and play in the woods, go and get your hands dirty, go and drive the car when you're 10, don't hurt yourself. So it's many of those ideals that have gotten lost. I know you have children, I have children. It's many of those ideals that have gotten lost today, haven't they, Mark?
Yeah, I think so.
So I ask you that because I wonder this. I get curious, Mark. What kind of kids are being raised today saying to themselves, I want to, or I'm going to be a soldier? And before you answer that, because being a soldier, I wonder in 2024, 2030, 2040 is very different than how you and I were raised. Being a soldier back then had a lot to do with warfare, traditional infantry, where I'm curious and I'm wondering, as we both know, the world may be in a state of war right now, but we don't see it because it's not fought. It's obviously being fought with guns and tanks over in Ukraine, but China and America aren't fighting war with guns and tanks right now. They're fighting war with technology. So I guess the question I'm asking you is, you were raised in that era of being a soldier with, I'm going to go and play with my guns. Now there's kids being raised behind the keyboard thinking they're going to be a soldier. Do you follow me, Mark?
Yeah, I do. We're having problems now, and of course the disclaimer is nothing that I say is, I'm not a representative of the DOD or the United States government, or anything like that. My views and opinions don't reflect necessarily the views of the Department of Defense, but I think we're in a crisis right now in the sense of some of the military branches are having problems meeting their recruitment goals. We've got a number of issues. Some do not want to serve. And then there are some who want to, but can't because they're just not physically able to. We know statistically, I didn't have the figures. Yeah. I don't ever know where the conversation is going to go, Keith. That's why I love coming on the show and talking with you. But I was listening to a podcast that was just talking about stats of the 20-year-old something now versus a couple generations ago. And it does seem like the IQ is lower. We're not as smart as our ancestors. We are not as strong as our ancestors. We're not as fit. And we're not really, I don't think, and there are exceptions, but I don't think that the younger generation is driven by a sense of vision and commitment to the country. Because you have to ask yourself, look at the shenanigans that are going on in the news without getting too political. Just look at the absolute joke that our leaders are running. It's just like a theater, right? And so when you think about signing up on the dotted line, I'm a soldier. I'm going to be a soldier as long as I can. I wouldn't change a thing for a kid coming back, for coming down when they're ready to sign their name on the dotted line to say, yeah, send me wherever you want to whatever cause or conflict anywhere around the country. Is that something that I want to sign my name up for?
That's interesting, Mark, because
to where I could get blown up.
Yeah.
I can get injected with all kinds of stuff, things that they inject you with to inoculate you with. But hey, we know Agent Orange, some of the other things that have happened in the past, Manhattan Project, we know they don't mind experimenting on us either. You know what I mean? So when kids see that, they're exposed to that. You have to ask yourself, are people, and I don't know this, but are people asking themselves, hey, what am I signing up for? I don't mean what kind of ride am I going to be taking on, but what am I signing up to protect? And is it worth
Well,
protecting?
that's an interesting question, especially if you're growing up not really believing in either one of them. And we both know that politics, and I speak with my 17-year-old and my 14-year-old about politics, and they look at me like, huh? What? Like they don't really care. To your point, if you're growing up as a 17, 18, 19-year-old, you're looking to the left and you're going, I think that guy's a Yahoo. And you're looking to the right and you're going, I think that guy's a Yahoo. I believe in my country, but I really don't want to go and put my life or my body on the line for what this guy or this guy says.
Yeah.
Really,
You do get the feeling, and I can understand on some of these conflicts. If an 18-year-old kid says, look, I want to serve, I want to protect my country, but if I sign up, I want to protect the country. I don't want to go on some conflict and get my legs blown off or come back forever marred and scarred mentally and psychologically just so that I could make somebody rich.
or maybe worse, Mark Booher, maybe saying, oh, there's some civil unrest unruling here in the United States. I need you to go to Arkansas to go and protect a certain group of humans and Americans. That becomes really bizarre. If you're signing up, next thing you're in your backyard protecting your country from your country. Like I can't even imagine. You follow me?
I've had conversations with people who have literally told me that. There's a lot of things going on in the zeitgeist right now.
Yes.
And it's crazy, man. I never thought in my lifetime I'd be a party to that I'd be navigating that.
Interesting, Mark. What's interesting, Mark, is that I was reading over the weekend, as divisive as politics are here in North America, I'm here in Canada, you're in the States, we'll call it a blanket. As divisive as they are, it's incredible how together the United States has become in certain areas of decision making over the last 12 months as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Republicans and Democrats come together because there's this idea of, well, we got to protect ourselves from China. We got to protect ourselves from these different countries and the reordering of the world. So certain big decisions the country's coming together on. Mm-hmm. My point being, is there going to be a generation of young men and women who are maybe 10, 11, 12 right now, 13, 14, maybe even 8, 9, 10, growing up with raw America, raw Canada, and some of that patriotism, Mark, that you grew up with, maybe that I grew up with. And because let's be honest, maybe there are some that consider we're sitting back into some Cold War theatrics. Does that also perpetuate some local patriotism where there are some, like I said, some young North Americans growing up going, no, I'm growing up to protect my country?
I think that's certainly possible. I think historically that's true. When a conflict comes, when the narrative is poised in such a way that it shows that there's a legitimate threat out there and that we need people to go, then you saw that on 9/11. You've seen that in other conflicts. I remember when I was in high school and Desert Storm, I was too young. I missed out on that one, but I was itching. I was hoping it was still going on by the time I graduated so I could get in on it, but I missed that one. And then back in the early days of Vietnam, before they drug it out into what it became onto World War II. I think I think for all that people say about the younger generation, about the problems and the issues that they're having, and whether they're a lost cause or they're lazy or they just sit behind a keyboard all day playing video games or whatever it is, I do think there is a certain sense of where they're a little skeptical about that stuff. I think they're a little bit more savvy. I think because the information is a little bit more decentralized now than it was when we just had 3 networks and you and I were growing up where you were the remote control. If Daddy wanted you to change it to I was the remote control in my house. If my dad wanted the channel turned, hey, go up there, turn the channel. So I turn it from channel 4 to channel 7. You know what I mean? So we know that the networks, this is public knowledge. You can search the major networks. They're pretty much owned by just a couple 2 or 3 corporations or whatever. I don't know the exact number, but it's not a lot. But the fact of the remains with the internet and alternative sources of media, citizen journalists, and stuff like that, there is a certain sense where information is more decentralized. And so the narrative, they can control it to a certain extent, but not totally like they did when you and I were growing up.
Yes. All right, so that's going to be for round 3 conversation with Keith and Mark. We're going to get into conspiracies and political crap.
Good enough. We can keep it light.
We're going to keep it light. Yeah. And here's how we're going to keep it light. We're going to go back to high school. You made a comment to me that is intriguing to me. Iraq is going on. No, Afghanistan's going on. And no, Iraq.
No, it would have been, or Saudi, or Iraq, the first Iraq. Yeah.
And you're like, I want to go there. I want to go there. I want to go there. Let's get into your first venture into theater. Let's get into those first moments where Mark the soldier, and I'm being serious now, Mark the soldier is emerging. Take me through, because here's where I get really curious, man. Take me through leaving North America. Take me through that call. You're saying, okay, Mark, you're heading over. How old were you? How did that feel? Was it excitement? Was it fear? Were you scared? How did it feel flying over? What did you fly over on when you landed there? What did it feel like when the door opened on the airplane? You're like, all right, I'm here. I'm not on vacation and I could die. What did it feel when you pulled your trigger for the first time? Take me through those moments, Mark Booher, when you recognized, man, I'm a fucking soldier right now.
Yeah, okay, I will. But now I've got to give you a caveat. It's not going to be as impressive as you think.
Okay.
I'll tell you. No, I'm not saying that.
That's good.
I'm 100% real. It's not going to be as sexy as you think. I'll tell you why. It's because a lot of it just, I did have some experiences that were I don't want to say formidable for me, but formative for me.
Okay,
for me personally. But they're nothing compared to what some of my other buddies got into because of the timeline in which I served. Because I came in right after Desert Storm, but before 9/11. So we were just doing kind of small brush fires, what they would call at the time operations other than wars and things like that. And then I ended up getting injured. I think I talked about this in the last, and I had like 20 plus year break of service.
Yes.
So I didn't go back in until I was like in my 40s. And so by then I had missed, not for want of trying, but I missed Afghanistan and Iraq. So I have been able to go around the world and do things, but it wasn't like I didn't get to do Afghanistan and Iraq and everything. So my buddies, people that work with me in my business, some of those, those are the guys that really have some high octane stories. But I'll give you what I got, man. I mean,
please do. Well, because I'll tell you what I love about my veterans who come on the show and I meet with. Y'all so humble. Y'all don't want to diminish the accomplishments of your colleagues. And because to people listening, just the fact that like, I didn't go to war, I went to operations other than war. Yeah, but just still we're in situations where people listening right now. And I love it because you guys all take it for granted. Yeah, but I did this, but that guy did something more dangerous than I did.
It really is, man. I've got a buddy that was in the 101st and went into Iraq, and then he did contracting for about 10 years. And he went from like just doing static security to doing like the mobile teams. And that's a big deal, especially because most of the mobile teams, they're like made up of like former Navy SEALs, Delta guys, Ranger dudes. So like he wasn't in that. And so it took him a long time to work into that. It's a big deal. And he's done some super cool stuff. But then he'll get around another guy and he's the same thing. He'll be like, I didn't do anything.
I love it though. You guys, I had Joseph Malone on my show. I told you, and you guys are all like, yeah, what I did was pretty cool, but he did something worse than I did. Okay, you guys.
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's the culture in the military, but I think there are some people that have big heads and big egos and stuff. There definitely is that. But I think the majority, at least the people that I have met and I've worked with, there's just not a lot of room for that because, dude, there's always somebody stronger than you. There's always someone faster than you. No matter how good a shape you think you're in, there's somebody that's on some course that's just going to crush you. And you have that happen enough times, it's hard to walk around thinking you're all that. It really is. I don't know, man. That's just my take on it.
I love it though. So humble Mark aside, Your first time you go over to other, what did you call it? An operation other than war.
Yeah, that's what we call them. So I
Yeah.
was a veteran of Operation Joint Endeavor. So that was the Bosnian conflict. So that
Mhm.
was back in the 90s. That was the first time, I'm pretty sure that's the first time that NATO had ever fielded a ground force in their
Yes.
history. So they have done air operations and airstrikes and stuff like that, no fly zones or whatnot, but they'd never fielded a ground force, an operational ground force. So I got to do that. That was some pretty cowboy stuff because I was in an American task force, probably about a platoon size, so about a 30 dudes or less. That was a task force made of all branches of the service. So we had Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, all of us together, and we were attached to a British unit inside the French sector.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was pretty cool
It's
because you
cool.
get a lot of freedom, right? It's being what we call being away from the flagpole, from the head shed. That's just some military parlance. The flagpole kind of represents your headquarters where mommy and daddy are going to lay all these rules,
Oh,
the supervision, but you get outside away from the flagpole. There's nothing, who's going to say anything as long as you're not, yeah, you know what I mean? So
that's
you have a little bit
interesting.
more freedom as far as what you can do. And so that was pretty cool. And for a 20-year-old, that's 20 or 21, first time away from home and everything. It's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting and
Were
everything.
you,
But
so even though it wasn't quote unquote major conflict, Mark,
mhm.
were you still nervous? Was mom and dad nervous when you got on that airplane to head on overseas?
I wasn't nervous. I was excited. My parents were shitting their pants, but
Of
they
course.
were nervous. Yeah, we did have we had some firing incidents and some hostile stuff that goes on. Again, without really just getting into it because I'd just be embarrassed talking about it compared to what my
Yeah.
other
I
buddies have
get it.
done
I
because it's
get it.
just
Yeah.
so insignificant. Yeah, we had some firing incidents, we went things like that. So it's definitely a hostile fire zone. I wouldn't call it a war zone. But if you want to just you'd mentioned like, hey, when you first get in, you first get the gun in your hand, what's that like? I think I don't care whether you're in the military or not. Anytime you learn something that you're going to have to apply in the real world, I think there's always that nagging feeling or thought in the back of your head is if the time comes, can I do this? You
Well,
know?
it's interesting because that relates to where I want to get our conversation. And let's go there right now, which is what you do today. And you teach
Mhm.
people with guns, you teach them how to use guns
Mhm.
effectively, you work with tactical units.
Mhm.
Mark, is that a question that often a human being asks themselves, or that you ask of a human being, which is okay, Keith, I'll train you all you can with this gun, but you need to be able to use it in the time that you need to use it.
Yeah,
Is that a failure from most human beings or some human beings, Mark?
I think the majority of people ask themselves that question, and the reason why it's not something that will readily talk about unless they're just brutally honest. A lot of people don't want to have that conversation, but they do because you can see it in the way that marketers
Yes.
attack you. You know what I mean? Like marketing, I don't care what the product is. It's a product that's designed, they want to appeal
Yes.
to build enhancing your confidence and your security for whatever you need that you think you need that product. So I know marketers do a lot of research on mental and human psychology. So they know that's nagging thoughts. Anytime someone, if you're taking martial arts for self-defense, and you've never been in a fight before, you've never been punched before, you know, you've never felt the force of the impact of your knuckles onto somebody's jawbone before, when you've gone when you've thrown all you can behind it, if you've never felt that before or been punched in the face, you're going to wonder, can I make this work? Or you should. I think you
Yeah.
should have that
No
question
kidding.
with yourself. And that's something that you need to settle yourself. And really, the Army's pretty good, or the military, I'd say all the branches are pretty good on helping you navigate that through their training paradigm.
Have you So I asked this question of another, excuse me, guest of mine that was through the lab, another soldier, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Have you shot a gun at another human being before?
I've not, no, I haven't.
I asked this fellow this question, and who said he had, and he was a special ops fellow, and he told me how it messed with his head for a little bit, and he's had to reconcile how that whole, just the emotion of the entire experience. All training aside, he reflected upon it with me, and I ask that because we go back to training somebody with guns, training with this probably expectation of, I'm going to train you all I can, Mark. I hope you never have to use this.
Yeah.
Down to, am I correct in many ways?
I would say that's probably the downside a lot, and that's just the modern world that we live in.
Yes.
Right. It's not a dunk on the military, although they're abetting it in a way. We're all products of the culture, and
yes,
they want to train you to be a killer. They want to equip you with the weapons. They're going to give you all of the cadences when you're in basic training and stuff about killing and the glory of battle and everything like that. But then once you pull that trigger, once you go down range and you do that, then after that, you better not act like you enjoyed it. You better not glory in it. You better not revel in it. And is it any wonder then? You better just swallow it and act like you just made a bank deposit. You better act like you just dropped off, that you just delivered flowers to the next business or what. You better treat it like any other job. And I think
it's
that's
interesting
wrong.
to hear you say that, because as I'm listening to you say that, I'm reflecting upon my conversation with some of my guests, and that was the methodical nature of one of my guests. And now it resonates with what you've just said, because they were taught to be that way.
Yeah. And so what happened, and I think that's, in some ways, it's just incredibly asinine. It's unfair to the person. I think it's cruel to do that to somebody, in a sense, to train them for that. And then if there's any sense of, and then what does the society tell you all about it all day in the modern war is hell? It's terrible. You should never be able to do it, and all that thing. So the whole society is just geared around the ugliness of war. There's no glory in it. That's a lie. That's what we do to sell to 18-year-olds to get them to go off and fight. But the reality is, and all that stuff, in ancient times, that was not the case. The way that you tested yourself, the way that you found glory, the way that you found approval through your community was by going to battle and by was crushing the enemy. And that when you returned home, your deeds were valorized, they were celebrated. And so when you returned home, it wasn't something that you had to only share with the few that understood. It wasn't something that you had to keep buried down within yourself. It was something that the community celebrated. It's not like that in the modern world. And if you do, they look at you like you're a barbarian. And in some sense, they'll sanction you for it. I remember I saw a story of a helicopter pilot. This was years and years ago. And this guy was in basically a dogfight with another aircraft, and he fired a missile and he took the plane down. And he said, and the guy he'd been trained to do this. How many hours had he been logged into that? How many of years of his life had he been living outside of a civilian world and living in this military environment where we want him to be brave, we want him to be able to do the right things, make the right calls, and save lives when it's his time. And when he pulled that trigger, he sent that missile down and took that aircraft, there was a feeling of elation. And he said, stick a fork in him on the radio. He just said, stick a fork in him and he's done. Right. And he was excited about the fact that he was successful in what he thought at the moment was a life and death situation for himself and other troops on the ground. And that pilot was reprimanded for that.
My internet has crashed here in the lab, so I'm going to continue the conversation on mobile with Mark Booher. Mark, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Sweet.
I'm not sure. So this hasn't happened before. This is one of those first time experiences, but this is okay. We'll get it going here while we keep chatting. So we were talking about how marketers and how gun manufacturers and how the military has taught our soldiers and taught our humans to perhaps be numb to situations when we get through them. And you were questioning whether that was the right thing or wrong thing, Mark.
Yeah, like I said, we live in a modern era where the majority of the population is far removed from violence versus the way that they were in antiquity. We don't slaughter our own food for the most part. Someone else does it. By the time we go down and find meat, it's packaged where it has no semblance of what it looked like alive. You know what I mean? Like we don't see death like we used to. And as a result of it, the modern person who's never they don't want to come face to face with this. They don't want to see it. They don't want to talk about it. Then they don't appreciate the military. It's more like, hey, go do what you have to do. But then when you come back, don't talk about it. Don't glory in it. We're not going to give you glory. We're not going to give you, we'll say thank you for your service and everything. You see what I mean? And I don't know
I
if it
do.
got cut
I
off
do.
before, but I said in the past, in antiquity, the way you achieve glory, renown was to test yourself on the field of battle. And you can read some ancient sagas where they're talking about shields breaking. They're talking about stabbing dudes in the face with their spears. They're talking about entrails and in all its glory. And the community is coming around that where you could, I don't want to say brag, but brag is a profane term, but to glory in that. And I don't know what the answer is, but I was like, man, is it any wonder then when guys go home and their face, when they go off and they stare death in the face toe to toe, but then when they come back, society says, we don't want to hear about it. We
Yeah.
thank you for your service. Thank you. But don't talk about it. Don't act like you enjoyed it. Don't act like they want you to compartmentalize it and not talk about it. So I don't know, man. To me, that seems a little schizophrenic type of to me.
I hadn't considered your point of view until you brought it up today, frankly. And I'm not going to say I'm surprised by it. I just hadn't considered it, Mark, because you're right. Although I wonder, you made a comment about just moments ago that we don't see death like we used to. I actually wonder if it's the opposite, Mark. I wonder if humans have seen so much death we've become desensitized to it. With the internet, you can see death any second you want. You just have to look somewhere and you can see imagery, video, whatever you want. Now, you're right. We don't maybe see death in an analog way like maybe we were raised, but now death it's everywhere. So I'm wondering if we've become desensitized to it.
That's possible, but I don't know, man. I don't you might see it on a screen, but that's not the same as being there, man. That's not
Fair
the same as
comment. Yes.
experiencing it. It's when you see it on a screen, most of the violence we see is really it's enacted. It's acted. It's Hollywood
Yes.
violence
Yes.
that more often than not doesn't really mirror real life.
So this is fascinating to me because you teach self-defense, you teach tactical, you teach counterterrorism. Yet we live in a world now where with robots and certain ways of instilling violence, the human being can be so disconnected from it. I can sit in my house here. I can activate a drone. I can go kill the president of Iran in his helicopter. No pun intended or nothing. I'm not suggesting anything right now at all, Mr. Boer. But so me walking up to you with a gun, although it happened last week in Slovakia, it seems rarer and rarer than ever because we can hurt people without having that being in your face. Am I making sense of what I'm saying?
Yeah. I would still see it at this point in time. A lot of that is relegated to nation states or paramilitary
Yes.
organizations that are funded by nation states or players. Like we have yet to have wide scale like gang members attacking each other with drones in LA or that thing yet, or someone using a drone to snatch a purse, which I'm sure someday we might be able to do that. We haven't had that pushed down to the individual yet.
Hey, here's a question I ask myself sometimes, Mark, and I've never sat down with a military friend to ask this question. Are you surprised that more shit doesn't happen in North America? That's more than just like and I'm not trying to dismiss gun violence and knife violence, but are you surprised that a dirty bomb or certain things just haven't happened in North America? Is that a testament to the security of our nation, or is that just a testament to it's just hard to get that shit?
Yeah, man, I'd like to think maybe it's a little bit of all the above. As far as all right, let's take the terrorism thing out of it. We talked a little bit about that last time, but I'll address it. But let's just take just domestic style,
Yes.
robbing banks,
Yes.
robbing houses and stuff like that. Most of America is still pretty safe to be here. And the reason why I travel this country, man, and the people are pretty decent.
Mhm.
Americans are decent people for the most
Mhm.
part. And they really just want to be left alone. They want to work. They want to spend time with their friends and family. And that's really all it is to it. But we watch the news, and like we said before, the news is a for-profit entity. They're not a nonprofit entity. They have to make money. And like the cliche is, if it bleeds it leads type thing, that tired phrase, like that's what sells, that's what gets views, that's what gets clicks and everything like that. So that's what they're going to put in front of us. So if you watch the news, all the cities are burning, there's death around every corner, and there certainly are places like that in the country where that's more real than not. But for flyover America, like where I
Mhm.
live and
Mhm.
most places I go to, man, it's not without its crime, but it's relatively safe.
Hey, Mark, is the news your best customer? And what I'm the best marketing for you? So when you wake up every single day with Pearl Snap and Veritas Defense and helping other companies, is the news your biggest lead mechanism? Because when somebody puts out a crazy story, somebody calls Mark and says, "Hey, Mark, can you help me with this because I'm scared?" And you're like, "Nah, nothing to be scared about, but I'll still help you." Is that, do you know what I'm trying to say? Is that real for
Well,
you?
I wouldn't say there's nothing to be scared about, but no, it doesn't. And I think it's my business is set on a different model. I didn't start out this way, but it's just something that kind of became, it just happened. Yes, we do have a lot of folks come to us that are interested in self-defense. I say everybody that comes,
Yeah,
they're on some level, they're interested in self-defense,
sure.
but the majority of the people that are there is they're seeking a path. They're on a path. They're on a warrior's path. And I don't mean just physically, I'm talking metaphysically too.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
trying to reconnect to that primal sense of being of what our ancestors knew, right? That just knew. It was part of their being that has been lost in modernity. And we as men and we as societies are suffering because of it. And I think that's what breaks the news cycle hits. It comes and it's something that we talk about. And we'll take some news stories and we'll talk about them in class, and we might do some drills and reference something just to keep it relevant and interesting. But ultimately, the people that come to us are really, they're moving beyond that, right? They're on a path. And
Oh, fascinating. It's
there's
fascinating
a
to me.
lot, yeah. And look, man, it's not for everybody. And like I said, I didn't start out that way. I certainly don't market it that way, but I guess
Mhm.
it's just because every podcast I go on, it's so weird. It's this is what I end up, if I haven't talked about Beowulf, the Spartans, or somebody by the time we're done, it's an anomaly. I don't know. It's just these messages keep coming up. And I find sometimes I write about it in my newsletter, and before I hit send, I'm like, man, are people really into this? Is this really what they're looking for? I run a firearms training company. Like it's related, but it's different. But man, when I hit send, those are like the highest engagement letters I send out, because quite frankly, there's a lot of dudes out teaching guns. There's a lot of really good dudes out there teaching guns, but there's not a lot of people that are addressing that, the inner being of what it means to be a warrior's path. And I'm not talking warrior. We don't, you can't compare like a soldier, the modern day soldier, to the warrior of antiquity. They're not the same. They're not. The way the hierarchy, the structure, what they fought for and stuff like that, it's just different. But people want to reconnect to that. So the weapons are the medium that we use. It's the platform that we use. We could use a different platform if we wanted to, but that's the one we use.
To me, Mark. So I didn't know this. I know we talked a couple times here. We've talked a couple times off air. I did not know this. And I'm fascinated by this because what it tells me is it's you. There's something in the way you're delivering your message. So now I'm talking business and marketing with you. Now I'm taking
Yeah.
we're taking the soldier hat off. We're talking business and marketing now.
Yeah.
You are resonating with your audience by the words you're using, by the message you're giving, that there's something deeper happening here. And even when I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, Mark, even when I'm speaking with you and listening to you speak, there's more going on here than just this, which probably leads into why you became a lawyer. And you're like, Keith, I wasn't a very good lawyer. You told me on last show, but there's a curiosity. There's a curiosity going on in your head. And there's a way that you deliver that curiosity to people listening to you that makes them want more, which then says to me as a marketer and as a business person, Mark Booher, you got to lean into that. And I love that you've acknowledged it and you've created this awareness that, yeah, the guns and the training is the connection to me and my audience, but that's actually not what my audience wants me for.
Yeah. We do definitely go beyond that. Now, I do it.
Fascinating to me.
I do it on other formats. I do it on podcasts like this. I do it in our newsletter. I do it on live streams or podcasts that we run, Pearl Snap Tactical.
Yes.
I'm not, I don't spend as much time on that. That kind of philosophy is sprinkled into the course, but ultimately people come to the course, they want to run the gun. They don't want to hear me run my mouth.
But I think what it does though is it's speaking to society these days though. Like I think what you're doing is you're speaking to society, male loneliness, disconnect, the divisiveness of politics and human beings. So I think you're speaking to, there's this pulse, the zeitgeist that you're clearly tapping into with your customers. And you're right. They're like, Mark, just let me shoot the gun, man. I don't want to hear you talk.
Yeah, because I think anybody who hadn't been living under a rock, they know something is coming. They know change is coming. Yeah. They know, and they're not comfortable with it, and they don't like it. And I don't like it either. But they know we're going into it and there's no avoiding it. Like the die's been cast, we're at the tipping point. There's no unringing the bell. And I think the more savvy people realize that having 10,000 rounds and 240 cases of tuna fish locked up in your basement ain't really the answer. Nothing against my preppers out there. I do believe in being prepared, but I think they're understanding that there needs more than that. There needs to be not only a mental and emotional, but a spiritual resistance or resilience to face what is coming. And I believe those things were found in antiquity because those are things as civilizations, as our ancestors experienced mass civilization, the ending of empires and villages being wiped out, their whole life being, they had that. They had to have that. That's how they passed our DNA down to you and me. If they didn't have it, you and I wouldn't be here. And that's really what I'm about, is reconnecting that for my own self and then helping others reconnect it, because I don't know what the future holds, but I know that whatever society, whatever's left, whatever comes out of the ashes, once it's burned down, they're going to need people that have that. We are the people that are going to rekindle the flame and build back. And I don't see a different way.
Mark, what is coming? What do you teach your kids what's coming?
I got to hold on a second.
Yeah.
If I got to turn on ceiling fan, I'm burning up. So if it gets to bothering you, let me know. I'll turn it off.
No, I can't hear it. It's all good.
This is, I don't know what's coming, but I do know this. Our ancestor, it's a perception of time. In modernity, we see time as linear. Mm-hmm. And in modernity, we've been forced, or we've been fed really a lie that time is linear, and the myth of progress, that things are always going to get better, that technology is going to save us, that in time we're going to find the answers to our solutions through technological advancement, and that things will always be better, things will always get better, and that the further we remove ourselves from those in the past, the more backwards they become, the more ignorant. But we know through archaeology, we know through research, we know that our ancestors, they didn't understand science in the way that we did. They didn't have airplanes and things like that we did, but they were genius. You look at the 7 wonders of the world, you look at the pyramids, you look at the way that they're lined up with the stars, you look at the way that we couldn't even build with their technology what they did, like the monoliths and stuff like that. So we find that even some of their medical practices were far more advanced than we thought, than we gave them credit for. But anyway, getting out, it's not linear, but it's cyclical. We know that from nature. Nature will tell you time is cyclical. You're born, you grow, you reach your apex in your adulthood, and then you begin to age. You begin to give way to entropy, and then you die. And it's a law of nature, just like the seasons are, right? Just like everything in life, it is cyclical. And not only do humans and organic life have a cyclical time horizon, so do empires, so do civilizations. They are born usually through crisis, right? They come to
Mhm.
power,
Mhm.
and then they become corrupt, and then they give way to entropy, and finally they reach their next crisis where they de-evolutionize, they degrade, and they fall, and then something else comes within its past, within its ashes, so to say. And so I think that's where we are now. I think in the modern world, I don't know how long, I don't know what the timeline. There's guys, I'm about to do a podcast actually later today, just on Pearl Snap Tactical, on just this, on some theories of civilizational collapse and the things that are out there. And some people say there's 200 years, 250 years, and those numbers seem about right. Even if you look at the Roman Empire, which lasted over, 1,000 years, or well over 1,000 years, even within there, the Roman Empire under Constantine wasn't the same as it was under Julius Caesar, and it
Right.
wasn't the same as it was under the Republic. You know what I mean? So there's cycles, even within cycles.
So with
So
change coming, you're not going to live another 250 years, and neither am
right,
I. So when we talk about change coming, we're not talking about change coming next week or next month or next year. We're talking about on the macro sense of 2, 3, 400 years. Why do we care about it so much today then, Mark?
I think there's several cycles that are going
Mhm.
on, but I think in our time, I think as far as America and everything, I think we reached our apex in the 40s after World War II, and I
Ah,
think by then we began to decline, and I
mhm.
think we're in our elder age, so to say. So
You're talking about
whether
America as a
I
civilization.
think as an empire, so
Yeah, yeah.
there will always be a landmass where America was. There will be, but what is it going to look like? The same America? Probably not. And I think within my lifetime, I think it's going to be drastically different. I can already see it's
I,
drastically different than the America I grew up with.
I can't disagree with you there, Mark Boer. I can't disagree with you at
Yeah.
all, frankly. It's very different. And the
Mhm.
world is repositioning right now, isn't it? And it's only going to
Yeah.
continue to reposition. It's not the
Yeah.
same America. And it's interesting when you see its apex. Was the apex of the Americas in the 80s and the 90s, or was the apex just before the pandemic? Was that the peak? Because it seems like since then, the world has reshuffled considerably
Mhm.
since
Yeah.
the outbreak in Wuhan.
Yeah. That's definitely a pivotal point. Some people would point to the financial crisis in
Mhm, mhm.
2008 or whatever
Yes.
thing when I don't know. I think it's just, I think it's like with the person. When does a person start getting old? I,
I'm looking around. I'm not sure.
yeah,
I'm older than you, so I'm just trying to
yeah,
look to see
you
if
know
I'm
what I
going to.
mean?
Yeah, I do. Yes,
I mean, and
yes.
how do you know? Is it just your chronological age?
It's
Because I
just a
mean,
renaissance. You're in the middle of it, right?
yeah, because I know it's not just chronological, but there's other factors. I know some people that are my age, I'm in much better shape than some people
Yeah.
younger than me. And then
Yes.
there's some people that are older than me that give me a run for my money. I think, how do you know? How do you quantify that? I don't know. I think there's several factors, but I think what you do is, instead of saying one thing, oh, that's the turning point or that's the watershed moment, I think you can look at it in a period. And
Mhm.
I think definitely, yeah, I can see things starting to turn culturally. You can say from the 60s things start changing culturally, where now the respect for institutions, you begin to go away from not just respect for institution, but whereas you begin to see the seeds of hyper individualism. America's always been a very individualistic society, and we use that to our strength. That's how we conquered the frontiers and things like that. But now I'm talking about hyper at the cost of community, at the cost of family, at the cost of the greater good. And those types of things, you start seeing that in the 60s which then completely starts to unravel in the 90s and then the 2000s. And now we're headed to where, what is the individual? We can't even define. I can. You get someone up on a Senate hearing committee and they can't even define to you what an individual is, what a person is anymore. You want to talk about itemizing, cutting an individual off of their society to where we can't even, in common parlance now, without worrying about offending somebody, give definition to words and to meanings to things that we've just taken for granted for thousands of years.
I think that's changing, Mark. I think we're seeing the world and corporations have moved so far to being so inclusive, so woke. I'll use that word, where you're seeing it happen across America now, which is enough's enough. We've just gone too far because we can't even define what a human is.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. We missed the memo somewhere in our objectives. So let's just reset.
Yeah.
I love that you said society is not linear and it's cyclical. When you said to me that men are coming to me for the antiquity of the past and the warrior attitude, and that men, and those themes are also emerging around the world again, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
Those themes are starting to emerge again, which is, some would say, Keith, it's back to the 1940s again. I'm not trying to cast judgment on men and women in the workplace, and that's not where I'm going at all. But there seems to be some of these views again that are emerging,
because you find those things. That's how that you're headed into a crisis.
Interesting,
right? Because the closer we get to the boiling point, right?
Yes.
Then people they're not going to have the tolerance, right? Right now, those folks with those views that want to play fast and loose with just like common terms of anatomy and that want to argue whether or not gravity's racist or some asinine field like that. Once you start running into where your existence is threatened, and usually that's how historically major crises are resolved, is through war, real war, total war, then there's no tolerance for that kind of nonsense. When you start saying math is racist or something like that, nobody has time for that, right? Because once you are faced with an existential threat, right, now all of a sudden it's, no, we do need men to be men. We do need men to be strong, right? We do need men to step up. There is something that is worth defending, that is worth protecting. We do need the family, which is the nucleus of a society that holds it together. The people that are sane, it's like they wake up from their sleep and they put down their distractions and the things that have lulled them to sleep, and they wake up and they're like, wait, hold on, what just happened? You know what I mean? And then you start having some sense, because if you don't, then you are, like I said, that's the end. Then you have the Vandals sacking Rome. You know what I mean? And hey, the Italian peninsula is still there, but the Roman Empire is not. And so then people come out. So what I'm saying is, I don't know what the answer and what is. Maybe America rises out of that crisis, or they don't, or we don't. I don't know. No one knows. We don't have a crystal ball, but we know that we're headed that way. But it's the people that have that drive, that want to connect to the spirit of the ancestors to drive forward, that are going to come out the other side and rebuild whatever's left and build that new society. It'll be a new America, or maybe called something else. I don't know, but it'll be different.
As I've gotten to know you, Mark Booher, episode 1, episode 2, and a few off the side chats, when I originally met you, I thought of you more as a hawk. But the more that I speak with you, I'm going to suggest you're a dove. You're a man of words. You're a man who I believe probably leads with diplomacy. You're a man who believes with a point of view. You want to have a conversation. You want to hear somebody else's point of view. And if all else fails, you'll pull the gun out. But you really are a dove. You're a diplomat, Mark Booher. Am I wrong?
The way you phrase it,
you're a great communicator. I don't know if you know that, but you're a great communicator.
Well, thank you. I thought you were going to say, when you first met me, you just thought I was some redneck.
No, but
right around at a pickup truck.
I didn't want to say you're from Arkansas, driving around in a pickup truck, probably chasing NASCAR vehicles and
I
chickens
do
in the
drive
back.
a pickup truck, and I am from Arkansas, so I have to
I got
guilty
friends from
charge.
Arkansas and friends from Tech. I got a lot of my friends in the South there that I love with all of my heart. And that's, I guess what I'm saying is that you love the power of humanity. Am I wrong?
The way you phrase that, I never thought of it that way, but, like, who's gonna say no to that? I
Well,
mean,
some
what's the
people do.
alternative?
Some people do. Some people are like, no, fuck, man. I got no time for words. I'm right. They're wrong. This is how it's going to be. Here's my gun. We got to demolish them. We got to get rid of that. We got to go get rid of all the bad guys. Where you strike me as I'm talking to you that you're trying to find the answers through words. You're trying to find the answers through curiosity. I might have mislabeled you as a soldier, and I'm not trying to diminish that value in your life, but I'm really struck by your quest to solve problems with words.
I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think that is part of being a soldier. I think
Fair comment. Yes. Okay. Yes.
yeah, for me, because I'll tell you right now, I'll go anywhere. If I get the call up tomorrow and we're going somewhere, I'm good to go, man. I don't care where
Yeah.
it is. I'm good to go. That's why I'm back in. I know even though I'm still back in the Guard unit, my state has been deployed several times. We are slotted to go again. We just got back from a deployment. We just had some of our guys down in Syria and everything. And so we are slotted to we're on cycles just like the other states are. Hey man, and on this next one, I'm going to try to jump on it wherever it's going to. So
I love that. I love that commitment, man. Because I'm not wired that way, and I don't know others like that are that way, where you have such this strong purpose that I'm here to serve. I'm a soldier of my country. I have my beliefs, and when it's time to go, I'm going. Like how somebody can't have respect for that, I don't know what to say.
yeah. But it's a double-edged sword because there are some things that it's, man, I don't believe in that cause, or I don't, it's a conflicting kind of thing, right? Because so much of this stuff, there's so many places we don't have any business being in. But on the same at the same time, I'm not just going, I'm going for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to fulfill the legacy of my ancestors. I'm going in to join with them for what they did, for what for their
Yes.
for where they were and what they did, and I'm gonna take my place with them.
I love that.
You know, it's not I'll just say one thing about it. It's really interesting. It's you look at the American Indian, they got a raw deal in this country, right? I think everybody explains that it's a raw deal.
So the
But
indigenous
hey,
nation in our country.
on the same time, man, let's be honest, historically, I've done the research and I'll say, yeah, they got a raw deal, but they were giving each other a raw deal too before the Europeans got here too. But that's antiquity. That's the primal world. It's not it is village against village. It is your society fighting for resources against the other, and the other village down the river. That is the other. Yeah. Without getting into all that, but what I'm saying is, in the modern era, right? The American India was given a raw deal, but a lot of those guys served, and a lot of those guys do serve. And when those guys go to war, they're going to put feathers in. I'm not going to speak for all of them, but I've read articles about guys enlisting from the reservation, and people would be like, why are you going to go serve this country? Did this so wrong for your people and stuff? Again, I'm not speaking for those people. I'm just reporting articles from some of these warriors and soldiers that I read about. There was a part of they're going for them. They're going to get feathers for their bonnet, so to say. I'm saying, you know, so there's a metaphysical aspect to this for some people. Not everybody is keyed into that, but there's a part of that satisfied in me, whether I get to go or not. I've had one deployment. I had some exciting things happen. It wasn't as much as I wanted, so I'm sticking around, and I'm just gonna try to catch the next one. But yeah, and again, I'm not speaking for other people, and I'm not speaking saying everybody thinks the way I do, and there could be somebody get up here and saying this dude's crazy, this don't make any sense. I don't care. It doesn't have to make sense for them. It makes sense for me, and I'm doing this for me.
Mark, last question before I let you go. And again, had another incredible conversation with you. Maybe you'll be my first 3-time guest, actually.
Hey, man.
Maybe.
Oh, don't tease me like that.
Hey, how do you feel as an American, as a proud American?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about November 24? Does it make you nervous?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Like-
think everybody's wondering what's going to go down. But ultimately, I would say this. I'm gonna do my duty as a citizen. I'm gonna vote wherever I vote. I'm gonna exercise that right to vote. I'm not one of those people that's I don't make a difference. But at the same time, it's not gonna matter in my mind who gets elected.
It's funny because I don't think it actually matters either. I don't. Yeah. I think that
I don't think it's gonna matter.
No, and that's what makes me nervous too. I don't think it matters either.
That's the part. But again,
it's funny because we got a thumbs up from somebody listening right now who agrees with us.
Yeah,
it matters. Nothing's gonna. I think what makes me nervous around November is how. Do we revisit January 6th again? Does it rear its ugly head in November in a certain different way? What does the politics of the world look like by November?
Mm-hmm. I think you're going to see some wild things.
We typically know. You have to look at history. Yeah. The hawks come out when elections come out.
Yeah.
There's going to be some more war between now and November in the world where America's going to have a place in it.
Yeah, I think
it's going to be fact.
They always talk about the October surprise, like right before the election. I think here's the deal. Like, I don't have a crystal ball, but rather than but I'm not a fatalist either. But I think what matters is, what am I going to do?
Great comment. That's exactly it. Control what you can control. And what that is, Mark, is go and vote. Who cares who cares what your vote is, frankly? I don't care if it's red or blue, green, whatever. As a Canadian and as Mark as an American, as we're going to wrap our show up today, exercise your constitutional right to vote. Because I have actually no time for anybody who wants to bitch and complain, but can't get their ass off the couch to vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't care. I don't care what you vote. I really don't care. But go try to make a difference for your country.
Yeah.
No, do you agree?
Yeah. And really, America, and I bet Canada's like this too. As much as everything we hear about is at the headshed or the flagpole, so to say.
I love that, man. Yeah.
But really, there's things that affect me, but my local politics affects me a lot more.
Yes.
Than anything that's pushed down from DC. And I bet most folks don't probably know the name of their city councilman members. They might know their mayor, probably don't know the name of their sheriff, definitely don't know the name of their judges. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you what, those folks have a lot more sway over your day-to-day life than the folks in DC. The folks in DC cause plenty enough problems for us, but the folks in your local neck of the woods, man, that's literally, you saw that with the lockdowns, right?
Yeah.
You saw that with the lockdowns in America, for sure, man. I traveled during the lockdown, and big difference between going to some major metropolitan area, like going to Philadelphia versus Little Rock versus Orlando versus Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like, you saw, it was night and day.
Yes. No, I believe it. I believe
it. And that wasn't driven by DC, man. You can be mad at DC all you want, but that didn't come out of DC. That came out of your local governing bodies.
Yeah, that's a well-stated fact, Mark Booher. That's a good way to wrap up our conversation today. And my friend and your new friend, Tom, joins us from Africa.
Hey.
Mark, you would love to meet Tom. You would love to go on the safari that I did with Tom in Kenya a couple years back. And my plan is I want to go back this year. Maybe you come with me. He is an incredible guide who spent time with lions and elephants and everything. Best guide ever, man.
Dude. Yeah, I've been to North Africa. But I would love to push down further into the continent, man. That was you were in North Africa for work? Yes.
That'll be back for episode 3 with Mark Booher in North Africa for who knows what reason as the dove. Mark, dude, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate our conversation. Man. I appreciate where we can take things. And I know we can probably sit here for a couple of more hours, but I'm going to respectfully stop. And I'm going to mark you on the calendar for us to come back for number 3 because people enjoy what we're having to say. I like your point of view. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I'm surprising you and you're surprising yourself with some of the things that maybe we're talking about.
Yeah. My wife accused me. I'm like a person. I think out loud. So something that's how
great, it's great, but it also connects for me where you became a lawyer in your life. I'm being really serious right now because you're a soldier, but you're also a lawyer. And I was fascinated by that. Soldier, lawyer, because to be a lawyer, it's words, it's theater, it's art, it's articulating thoughts. It's very different than sitting around in a trench with a gun. Right. So it's just a different whole mindset. So Mark Booher, thanks for hanging out with me again.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to put you back in the green room for a quick second. You know how it works. I'm going to say goodbye to Nation and we'll come back and walk you out. Okay.
Sounds good, man.
Hang tight. Thanks, Tom, for tuning in, pal. And there goes Mark. Where's Keith here? There we go. There he is right there. Hey, thanks for sticking around for the technical difficulties. Sometimes that happens. I hope you enjoyed the chat that I just had with Mark. Always a great conversation with Boer. I'm just getting used to my new controls here, so I don't think I'm going to play myself out with music. Instead, we're just going to quietly walk out the room, and then I'm going to go talk to Mark and walk him out, and I'll see you guys in the morning, tomorrow mornings in the lab. Today, we had a wonderful conversation asking the question, is the internet dead? Interesting. Tomorrow, we'll have another conversation to throw out there, as well as a Throwback Tuesday. We're going to revisit a guest that was in the lab over the last number of months and see what they've been up to. Tomorrow, mornings in the lab with myself and a bunch of friends who pop by. And then, of course, tomorrow, live in the lab at noon, Anthony Bork. Mark Booher, the guy flew F-18 fighter jets for a long time. So I'm bringing him in. We're going to talk flying airplanes, and it's Soldier Week here in the lab. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great one. Ciao.